Sarah Chen walked through the massive doors of the Galactic Council building. The structure was so tall she could not see the top. Made of some glowing blue metal, it stretched up into the clouds of Nexus Prime. She had never seen anything like it back on Earth. Other beings filled the hallways around her. Some looked like giant insects with 6 arms. Others were made of what seemed like living crystal that sang when they moved. A few looked almost human but had skin that changed colors like a rainbow. Sarah felt very small and very alone. She wore her best Earth military uniform. It looked plain next to the fancy clothes and natural armor of the other species. Her translator device buzzed in her ear, turning alien languages into English words. The sound still seemed strange and musical. The council chamber was enormous. Thousands of seats formed circles around a central stage. Each seat was designed for a different type of alien body. Sarah found the single chair marked for Earth. It was tucked away in a corner, far from the important seats near the stage. As she sat down, a tall blue alien with 4 eyes looked at her and made a sound like laughing. It spoke to its neighbor, and soon several nearby aliens were making the same sound. Sarah kept her face calm, but her hands tightened on her chair arms. The council leader was a being that looked like a floating jellyfish made of light. It spoke without moving, its voice appearing directly in everyone's mind. "Today we decide which worlds receive protection and aid," the leader announced. "We will review each application based on the species' advancement, peaceful nature, and contribution to galactic civilization." Sarah listened as world after world was approved. The crystal beings called ethereals got funding for new art projects. The insect-like Zephyrians received military support for their border colonies. Even primitive Stone Age worlds got protection if they showed potential for peaceful growth. Then the leader announced Earth's case. Application number 847. The planet called Earth, inhabited by a species known as humans. The chamber erupted in noise. Aliens of all shapes made sounds that Sarah's translator called laughter, disgust, and surprise. She felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment but kept her expression neutral. A Zephyrian delegate stood up. His body was covered in blue-green scales that flashed as he spoke. "Honored Council, this application is a joke. Earth is a death world. Its sun sends out deadly radiation. The planet shakes and splits open. Burning mountains spit poison into the air. No civilized being could survive there." An ethereal's crystal body rang like a bell as it added, "The humans are violent beyond measure. They fight wars over imaginary lines on maps. They poison their own air and water. They have weapons that could destroy their entire world." More delegates joined in. "They are barely evolved from animals. They worship invisible gods and kill each other over different beliefs. They have not even learned to control their own population." Sarah wanted to stand up and defend her people. She wanted to tell them about human art and music and love. She wanted to explain how humans helped each other during disasters and how they protected animals and tried to fix their mistakes. But she stayed silent. The council's computer system projected holographic images above the chamber. Sarah saw Earth from space, beautiful and blue. But then the images changed. They showed wars, pollution, destroyed forests, and extinct animals. They showed humans fighting and killing and destroying. The statistics appeared in glowing numbers. Earth had more natural disasters than any known inhabited world. Earthquakes, hurricanes, volcanoes, floods, droughts, and ice ages had shaped human history. The planet's position made it vulnerable to asteroid impacts and solar radiation. "Humans live an average of only 80 Earth years," announced the Zephyrian. "Most civilized species live for centuries. They reproduce without control, covering their world with billions of individuals who consume resources faster than they can be replaced. They have not achieved faster than light travel," added a Centauri ambassador, its metallic voice cold and mechanical. "They have not developed beyond primitive nuclear technology. They still use chemical rockets to barely escape their planet's gravity." The accusations continued for an hour. Sarah heard her species described as savage, destructive, short-lived, and doomed. The aliens spoke about humans the way humans might discuss dangerous wild animals. Finally, the council leader asked for the vote. The question was simple. Should Earth receive galactic protection and be welcomed into the civilized community of worlds? The voting was swift and unanimous. Every single delegate voted no. "Earth is classified as a failed world," the leader announced. "The human species shows no potential for peaceful development. They will likely destroy themselves within the next century. When they do, The planet will be marked for administrative cleanup and possible colonization by a more suitable species. Sarah felt the weight of 3 billion human lives in that moment. Every person on Earth had been judged and found unworthy by beings who had never walked on human soil or spoken to a human. Child, the Zephyrian delegate looked directly at Sarah. Do you have anything to say in defense of your primitive world, human? Sarah stood up slowly. The entire chamber fell silent. Thousands of alien eyes watched her. She looked around the room, meeting as many gazes as she could. When she spoke, her voice was calm and steady. Not yet. The chamber exploded in more laughter. Several aliens made sounds that the translator called mockery and derision, but Sarah did not sit down. She continued to stand, looking directly at the council leader. I request permission to address this council again if circumstances change. The jellyfish-like leader pulsed with what might have been amusement. Very well, human. You may return if your species somehow proves worthy of reconsideration, though we do not expect that day will ever come. Sarah nodded once. I understand. She walked out of the chamber with her back straight and her head high. Behind her, she could hear aliens discussing how quickly they expected humanity to destroy itself. Some bet it would happen within 50 years. Others gave humans 100 years at most. As Sarah reached the exit, she passed a group of young aliens who were studying galactic history. One of them, a small crystalline being, asked its teacher, "Why are the humans so violent and destructive?" The teacher, an ancient ethereal whose crystal body had grown dim with age, sang a reply. They come from a world that tried to kill them every day for millions of years. Such a place creates only monsters or makes them extinct. The humans became monsters. Sarah stopped walking. She turned to look at the young student, who reminded her somehow of her own daughter back on Earth. Excuse me, Sarah said politely. May I correct something? The teacher's crystal body flashed with surprise, but it nodded. Sarah knelt down to the young alien's level. That world that tried to kill us every day, it did not make us monsters. It made us strong. It made us stubborn. It made us the kind of people who do not give up no matter what happens to us. She stood up and looked at the teacher. And it made us the kind of people who protect those we love no matter the cost. Sarah walked away, leaving the teacher and student in confused silence. Outside the building, she looked up at the alien sky and made a promise to herself and to every human being on Earth. They had called Earth a curse. Soon, she thought, they might learn why she called it home. 3 months after the council meeting, Sarah Chen was working in her small office on Nexus Prime when every alarm in the building began to scream. Emergency lights flashed red throughout the Galactic Council headquarters. Sarah ran to her window and saw ships fleeing the planet in every direction. In the distance, something dark was moving between the stars. Her communication device buzzed with an emergency message from the council leader. All representatives were ordered to report to the main chamber immediately. Sarah had never seen the council chamber so full of fear. Aliens who normally stood proud and tall were huddled together. Some were making sounds her translator could not identify. Others sat in complete silence, their bodies trembling. The holographic display above the chamber showed a map of the galaxy. Large sections were marked in red. As Sarah watched, more areas turned red every few minutes. Honored delegates, the council leader's voice echoed in their minds. We face a threat unlike any in recorded history. They call themselves the Devourers. The display changed to show strange machines. They looked like mechanical insects the size of buildings, but made of dark metal that seemed to absorb light. Thousands of them moved together like a swarm. They appeared from dark space 3 months ago, the leader continued. Since then, they have consumed 47 star systems. Every world they touch is stripped of all matter and converted into more of their kind. Sarah felt cold fear in her stomach. 47 star systems meant billions of lives lost. The Zephyrian delegate stood up, his scales now a dull gray color instead of their usual bright blue. Our best ships are useless against them. Our energy weapons cannot penetrate their hulls. When we destroy one, 3 more appear in its place. An ethereal's crystal body sang a mournful note. We tried to communicate with them using our psychic abilities. There is nothing there but hunger. They do not think as we think. They exist only to consume and grow. Our automated defense systems, said a Centauri representative, have been completely overwhelmed. The machines learn from each attack and adapt faster than we can modify our weapons. Sarah listened as delegate after delegate described their failures. The most advanced civilizations in the galaxy were helpless against this enemy. Every strategy had failed. Every weapon was useless. The display showed the Devourers' path through space. They moved in a straight line toward the galactic core, consuming everything in their way. At their current speed, they would reach the Council worlds within weeks. "We are considering evacuation," the Council leader announced. "Perhaps we can find safe harbor in the Outer Rim territories until the threat passes." "And if it does not pass?" asked an alien Sarah did not recognize. "What if they consume the entire galaxy?" Silence filled the chamber. Sarah realized that these ancient, advanced civilizations had no answer. They had grown comfortable with their technology and their peace. They had forgotten how to fight for survival. Sarah stood up. The chamber fell quiet. Many aliens turned to look at the human representative with expressions that might have been surprise or curiosity. "I request permission to speak," Sarah said. The council leader's form pulsed. "The human wishes to address the council? This is most unusual during a crisis session." "Let her speak," said the Zephyrian delegate. "Perhaps primitive minds see solutions that advanced ones cannot." Sarah heard the insult but ignored it. She walked to the center of the chamber where speakers normally stood. "3 months ago you told me that Earth was a failed world," she began. "You said humans were violent and destructive. You said we would destroy ourselves and that our planet was cursed." Several aliens made sounds of impatience. Sarah raised her hand for silence, "But you also said something else. You said that Earth is a death world. You said it has more natural disasters than any inhabited planet. You said humans fight constantly and face extinction threats regularly." Sarah looked around the chamber, meeting as many alien gazes as she could. "You were right about all of that. Earth is a dangerous world. Humans do fight. We do face threats that could destroy us. But there is something you failed to understand." The chamber was completely quiet now. "When you live on a world that tries to kill you every day, you learn how to survive anything. When you face extinction threats regularly, you learn how to fight back. When your entire species is constantly in danger, you develop skills that peaceful worlds never need." Sarah activated her own holographic display. It showed Earth's history: ice ages, meteor impacts, volcanic eruptions, plagues, and wars. But it also showed something else: humans surviving, adapting, and growing stronger. Every disaster made us tougher. Every threat taught us new ways to survive. Every war showed us how to work together when extinction was the alternative. The ethereal delegate's crystal body chimed softly. "What are you suggesting, human?" Sarah smiled for the first time since the crisis began. "I am suggesting that Earth be given a chance to face the Devourers. If my people succeed where yours have failed, then Earth receives full council membership and protection. If we fail," she paused and looked directly at the council leader. "If we fail, you can proceed with your planned cleanup of Earth ahead of schedule. The Devourers will have saved you the trouble." The chamber erupted in sound. Aliens argued in dozens of languages. Some laughed at the idea of primitive humans succeeding where advanced civilizations had failed. Others seemed curious about what Sarah was proposing. The Zephyrian delegate's scales flashed bright red with what Sarah recognized as anger. "This is madness. How could a species that has not even achieved faster than light travel defeat an enemy that has destroyed our greatest fleets?" "Because," Sarah replied calmly, "your greatest fleets were never designed to face extinction. Ours were." The council leader raised a glowing appendage for silence. "This proposal is highly irregular. To give an unprotected world access to our military intelligence during a crisis." "With respect," Sarah interrupted, "your military intelligence has not been very useful so far. My people need 72 hours to prepare. In exchange, we will share everything we learn about the Devourers with the council." "And if you fail?" asked the Centauri representative. "Then you lose nothing you were not going to lose anyway," Sarah said. "The Devourers will reach Earth whether you give us this chance or not. At least this way, you might learn something useful from watching how we die." The council leader consulted with the other senior delegates in a rapid exchange of lights and sounds. Finally, it turned back to Sarah. "Very well, human. You have 72 hours to return to Earth and prepare your species' response to the Devourer threat. All council military data will be made available to you. In return, you will transmit all battle information back to us for analysis." Sarah nodded. "Agreed." As she turned to leave, she heard the Zephyrian delegate speaking to his neighbor in what he thought was a private conversation. "How long do you think the Death World will last?" he asked. "I give them 6 hours after the Devourers arrive," came the reply. maybe less. Sarah smiled to herself as she walked out of the chamber. She activated her emergency communicator and sent a message to Earth. Humanity, we have work to do. Behind her, the Council continued their debate about evacuation plans and safe harbor. They were already planning to run, but Sarah was planning to fight. The difference, she thought, was that humans had never had the luxury of running away from their problems. They had always been forced to stand and fight or die trying. In 72 hours, the galaxy would learn what that meant. Sarah's ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system. What she saw made her heart race with pride and fear. Earth was preparing for war. Massive space stations that had not existed a week ago now orbited the planet. Ships from every nation on Earth flew in formation around the moon. Construction robots worked without stopping to build weapons and defenses. Even the old International Space Station had been converted into a command center. Sarah's communication system came alive with voices speaking dozens of human languages. Her translator worked overtime to keep up. Chinese fleet reporting, ready for combat operations. Russian nuclear platforms online and armed. American carrier groups in position. European defense grid activated. African mining ships converted to missile platforms. Australian patrol boats armed with experimental weapons. Sarah had never heard such cooperation between Earth's nations. The same species that the aliens called hopelessly divided had united in less than 72 hours. General Martinez, the head of Earth's Joint Military Command, appeared on Sarah's screen. His face was tired but determined. "Welcome home, Commander Chen," he said. "We received your data about the Devourers. Every nation on Earth is working together. We have some ideas." Sarah's ship docked with the main command station. As she walked through the corridors, she saw something amazing. Scientists from countries that had been enemies were working side by side. Military officers who spoke different languages were planning strategies together, using translators and hand gestures. In the main conference room, Sarah found the largest gathering of human leaders in history. Presidents, prime ministers, generals, and scientists filled every seat. More joined by video link from around the world. Dr. Elizabeth Kim, Earth's leading expert on alien technology, stood at the front of the room. Behind her were holographic displays showing everything the Council had shared about the Devourers. The aliens failed because they tried to fight the Devourers like they fight each other, Dr. Kim explained. Energy weapons, psychic attacks, automated defenses. They use their strengths against an enemy that adapts to everything. General Martinez nodded. But the Devourers have never faced humans before. They have never faced a species that grew up on a world trying to kill them every day. Sarah took her seat as Dr. Kim continued the briefing. The Devourers are like a computer virus, Dr. Kim said. They learn from every attack and become immune to it. The aliens' mistake was using the same types of weapons over and over. So what do we do differently? Asked President Williams of the United States. Dr. Kim smiled. We do what humans do best. We use everything at once and we never stop changing our approach. The plan that emerged over the next hour was uniquely human. While other species specialized in one type of warfare, humans had always fought with whatever they could find. Nuclear weapons, announced General Petrov from Russia. The aliens consider them primitive, but the Devourers have never encountered controlled nuclear explosions used as tools. Electromagnetic pulse devices, added Dr. Tanaka from Japan. If the Devourers are machines, they need electronic systems to function. Chemical weapons, said Colonel Singh from India. Not to kill them, but to interfere with their sensors and communication. Biological warfare, suggested Dr. Okafor from Nigeria. We create viruses that attack their computer systems like they attack living cells. Sarah listened as humans proposed using everything from ancient catapult designs to experimental quantum computers. While aliens had developed beyond their primitive weapons, humans had never stopped improving everything they had ever invented. The key, said Admiral Chen from China, is to hit them with so many different attacks that they cannot adapt fast enough. But we need more than weapons, said Dr. Patel from the European Union. We need to think like the Devourers to defeat them. This was where human experience became valuable. Every human in the room had grown up hearing stories of survival against impossible odds. They knew how to think like both predator and prey. Captain Jackson, a former Special Forces officer, stood up. The Devourers move like a swarm, but they think like a single mind. In human warfare, we call that a command structure. Disrupt the command and the whole system fails. But how do we find their command structure? Asked General Martinez. Sarah had been studying the Devourer data during the flight home. She stood up and activated her own holographic display. They do not have a command structure like we understand it, she said. They are like ants or bees. Every individual is part of a larger group mind. But that gives us an opportunity. Sarah showed the room a simulation of Devourer behavior. Look at how they move. They are perfectly coordinated because they share information instantly, but that also means they all receive the same information at the same time. Dr. Kim's eyes lit up with understanding. If we can inject false information into their network, we can make them fight themselves, finished Sarah. Humans invented computer viruses. We know how to make systems attack themselves from the inside. The room fell silent as everyone understood the plan. It was dangerous and had never been tried before. But it was also the kind of creative, chaotic strategy that only humans would attempt. There is one more thing, said General Martinez. The aliens expect us to fail quickly. They are watching to see how long we survive. We need to use that to our advantage, Sarah nodded. Let them watch. Let them see how humans fight when their home is threatened. Over the next 20 hours, Earth transformed into a fortress. But it was not the kind of fortress that aliens would recognize. Human defenses were designed to break, adapt, and rebuild constantly. Space stations that looked like simple mining platforms hid experimental weapons. Cargo ships carried nuclear bombs disguised as food supplies. Even civilian spacecraft had been converted into missile platforms. Most importantly, humans prepared for failure. Unlike the aliens, who built perfect systems that broke completely when they failed, humans built systems that could fail partially and keep working. When the Devourers break through our first line of defense, General Martinez explained to his officers, we fall back to the second line. When that fails, we fall back to the third. We keep fighting all the way to Earth's surface if we have to. Sarah stood on the observation deck of the command station, looking down at Earth. The planet looked the same as always. Blue oceans, green continents, white clouds. But she knew that every human down there was ready to fight for their world. Her communication device buzzed with a message from the Galactic Council. The Devourers had been detected entering Earth's solar system. They would arrive within 6 hours. Sarah activated the general communication channel that connected every human ship and station in the solar system. People of Earth, she said. 3 months ago, aliens told me that our world was cursed. They said we were violent and primitive. They said our planet was a death world that created only monsters. She paused and looked out at the fleet of human ships preparing for battle. Today we show them that they were right about one thing. Earth did create monsters. We are the monsters that fight back when someone threatens our home. Across the solar system, millions of humans prepared for the greatest battle in their species' history. They were not the most advanced civilization in the galaxy. They did not have the best weapons or the fastest ships, but they had something the aliens had lost over centuries of peace and prosperity. They remembered how to fight for survival. The Devourers were coming to consume another helpless world. Instead, they were about to meet the children of a world that had been trying to kill them for millions of years. Sarah rolled up her sleeve and looked at the small tattoo on her arm. A picture of Earth as seen from space. Around it were words in simple English. Home is where the fight is. In 6 hours, the galaxy would learn what those words meant. The Devourer swarm arrived at the edge of Earth's solar system like a dark storm cloud made of metal and hunger. Sarah watched from the command station as thousands of mechanical creatures moved between the stars. Each one was the size of a building, covered in dark metal that seemed to eat light. They moved together like a single living thing, but Sarah knew they were machines designed for only one purpose, to consume everything they touched. Contact in 30 minutes, announced Lieutenant Torres from the sensor station. Enemy count is approximately 50,000 units. Sarah activated the communication channel that connected every human ship in the solar system. All units, this is Commander Chen. Execute Battle Plan Alpha. Across space, human ships began to move, but they did not move like the organized fleets that aliens preferred. Instead, they scattered in what looked like complete chaos. The Devourers had encountered organized resistance before. Every species they had fought used careful formations and predictable tactics. The machines had learned to expect certain patterns of behavior. But humans had never been good at following patterns. Enemy units attempting to form attack formation, reported Captain Liu from the Chinese destroyer Harmony. They seem confused by our ship positions. Sarah smiled grimly. Good. Let them wonder what we are doing. The first phase of the human plan was simple. Be unpredictable. While alien fleets moved in perfect formations, human ships flew in seemingly random directions. Some flew straight at the enemy. Others flew away. A few spun in circles or moved sideways. To the Devourers' collective intelligence, this made no sense. Their systems tried to predict human movements and failed. They had been programmed to fight logical enemies, not chaotic ones. First wave incoming, called General Martinez from Earth. Remember, people, when your primary weapon fails, switch to your backup. When your backup fails, use whatever you have left. The Devourers attacked with beams of energy that could slice through alien ships like knives through paper. But human ships had been built differently. Instead of trying to avoid all damage, they were designed to take hits and keep fighting. The first human ship to be struck was the European research vessel Discovery. The Devourer beam cut through its hull, but instead of exploding, the ship split into 3 pieces that continued to fight independently. Discovery reporting successful separation. Came the calm voice of Captain Anderson. All 3 sections are operational and engaging the enemy. This was something the Devourers had never seen before. When they destroyed an alien ship, it was completely destroyed. But humans had designed their ships to break apart and continue fighting as smaller units. Second wave tactics are working, reported Admiral Chen from the Chinese fleet. Enemy is having trouble tracking multiple small targets. Sarah watched as human ships executed the most chaotic battle plan in galactic history. When their energy weapons failed, they switched to missiles. When their missiles ran out, they used railguns. When their railguns broke, they rammed the enemy with their own ships. But the real surprise came when the Devourers tried to learn from the human attacks. Initiating Phase 2, Sarah announced. All units begin electronic warfare procedures. Dr. Kim had spent weeks studying how the Devourers shared information. Like all machines, they used electronic signals to communicate, but humans had been fighting electronic warfare for centuries. Every human ship began broadcasting signals designed to confuse and disrupt the Devourer network. They sent false information, created phantom targets, and introduced chaos into the swarm's collective consciousness. Virus upload successful, reported the hacker team aboard the Russian cruiser Stalin. Enemy units are beginning to attack each other. Sarah watched in amazement as groups of Devourers suddenly turned on their neighbors. The virus that human programmers had created was spreading through their network like a disease, making some units think their allies were enemies. This is impossible, came a transmission from the Galactic Council. The Devourers are fighting themselves, but the machines were learning fast. Within an hour, they had begun to adapt to human tactics. They developed new defenses against the viruses and found ways to track the chaotic human ship movements. Enemy adaptation rate is increasing, warned Lieutenant Torres. They are learning to fight like us. Sarah had expected this. All units initiate Phase 3. Switch to Pattern Gamma. Phase 3 was the most human tactic of all. When the enemy adapted to your strategy, you changed everything. Human ships suddenly stopped using energy weapons and switched to something the Devourers had never encountered: chemical explosives. Nuclear warheads modified with human ingenuity created electromagnetic pulses that disrupted Devourer electronics in ways their energy weapons could not. Direct hit on enemy Cluster 7, reported Captain Jackson from the American destroyer Freedom. Nuclear pulse has disabled approximately 200 enemy units. But the humans were not finished. While some ships used nuclear weapons, others released clouds of metallic dust that interfered with Devourer sensors. Still others fired projectiles made of simple iron that the machine's energy shields could not stop. They are using primitive kinetic weapons, observed the ethereal delegate, watching from the safety of the council chambers. How are such simple devices effective? Sarah heard the transmission and responded directly. Because sometimes the oldest solutions work best against new problems. The battle raged for hours. Human ships were destroyed, rebuilt from spare parts, and thrown back into combat. Entire fleets were wiped out, only to be replaced by civilian vessels armed with whatever weapons could be found. But slowly, the humans began to gain ground. Enemy formation is breaking up, reported General Martinez. They cannot maintain coordination under constant electronic attack. Sarah watched as the Devourer swarm, which had moved like a single organism, began to fragment into smaller groups. The viruses and electronic warfare had disrupted their ability to share information instantly. All units execute Phase 4, Sarah commanded. Target the isolated groups. Human ships swarmed the separated Devourer units like wolves attacking a scattered herd. But instead of just destroying them, human boarding parties began to capture intact Devourer machines. Boarding Party Alpha has successfully taken control of enemy unit, reported Sergeant Williams from his assault team. Beginning reprogramming procedures. This was the most audacious part of the human plan. Instead of just destroying the Devourers, they were capturing and converting them. Human programmers, working from plans developed during Earth's computer age, began to turn the machines against their former allies. Within another hour, captured Devourer units were fighting alongside human ships. The machines that had been designed to consume worlds were now protecting the very world they had come to destroy. "This is beyond impossible," transmitted the Zephyrian delegate. "They are using the enemy's own weapons against them." Sarah activated her communication system to address the watching galaxy. "This is how humans fight. We do not just defeat our enemies. We make them into allies or tools." The tide of battle was turning. The Devourer swarm, which had seemed unstoppable when it arrived, was now retreating toward the outer solar system. But the humans were not finished with them. "All units, pursue and capture," ordered Sarah. "Do not let them escape to threaten other worlds." Human ships, many of them damaged and held together by emergency repairs, chased the retreating Devourers throughout the solar system. They fought among the asteroid belt, where human miners used their knowledge of space rocks to hide and ambush enemy units. They fought near Jupiter, where the gas giant's radiation interfered with Devourer electronics. They fought all the way to the edge of the solar system, where human ships used the sun's gravity to accelerate projectiles to incredible speeds. Finally, as Earth's sun set on what had been the longest day in human history, the last Devourer unit was either destroyed or captured. Sarah stood on the observation deck of her command station, looking out at a solar system filled with wreckage and triumph. Human ships, many barely functional, were towing captured Devourer units back toward Earth. "Status report," she requested. 70% of our fleet is damaged or destroyed," reported General Martinez. "But we have captured over 5,000 enemy units intact. Our technical teams are already learning how their technology works." Sarah activated the galaxy-wide communication channel. She knew that every advanced civilization was watching and listening. "This is Commander Sarah Chen of Earth," she said. "The Devourer threat to this solar system has been eliminated. We are transmitting all battle data to the Galactic Council as agreed." There was a long silence before the council leader responded. "How did you achieve what our greatest fleets could not?" Sarah looked down at Earth, still blue and beautiful despite the battle that had raged around it. "You called our world a death world. You said it made us violent and destructive. You were right." She paused and rolled up her sleeve, revealing the small tattoo of Earth on her arm. "But what you did not understand is that a world that teaches you to fight for survival every day also teaches you never to give up. It teaches you to use every weapon, every trick, and every desperate strategy to protect what you love." Sarah looked directly into the communication device, knowing her words were being heard across the galaxy. The Devourers thought they were attacked 2 weeks after the battle. Sarah Chen stood once again in the Galactic Council chambers. But everything had changed. The same aliens who had mocked Earth now watched her with expressions she had never seen before. Some looked curious. Others seemed afraid. A few appeared to be studying her like she was a puzzle they could not solve. The chamber itself was different too. Where before Sarah had sat alone in a corner, now she stood at the center of the room. The single chair marked for Earth had been replaced with a platform that put her at the same level as the senior council members. The holographic displays above the chamber showed new information. Instead of images of Earth's disasters and human wars, they showed the battle with the Devourers. They showed human ships working together, captured enemy units being reprogrammed, and the final victory that had saved the solar system. But most importantly, they showed the data that human scientists had gathered during the battle. Information about Devourer technology, weaknesses, and behavior patterns that no other species had been able to discover. The council leader, The jellyfish-like being of pure light floated before Sarah. When it spoke, its voice carried a tone she had never heard before. Respect. Commander Chen, it began. The Galactic Council has reviewed the battle data from Earth's encounter with the Devourers. Your species' performance was unexpected. Sarah remained standing calmly, her hands behind her back. In what way, honored leader? You achieved total victory against an enemy that had destroyed 47 star systems, replied the ethereal delegate. Its crystal body chimed softly, a sound Sarah now recognized as amazement. More than that, you captured and converted enemy units that we thought were impossible to control. The Zephyrian delegate stood up. His scales, which had been dull gray with fear during the crisis, now flashed bright patterns of what Sarah's translator called admiration and embarrassment. Commander Chen, he said, I owe you and your species an apology. We called Earth a death world and humans primitive. We were incorrect, Sarah nodded once. You were not incorrect about Earth being dangerous. You were incorrect about what that meant. A new voice spoke from the audience. Sarah turned to see a delegation she had not noticed before. Representatives from worlds that had been attacked by the Devourers but managed to escape. Our homeworld of Karis was one of the first attacked, said their leader, a tall being covered in silver fur. We lost 70% of our population before we could evacuate. We have been hiding in the outer rim ever since. The silver-furred alien looked directly at Sarah. We watched your battle through long-range sensors. How did you know to use electronic warfare against machines that had adapted to every other attack? Sarah considered her answer carefully. On Earth, we have been fighting against our own machines for centuries. We learned that the more complex a system becomes, the more ways there are to break it. The Devourers were very complex. But how did you coordinate so many different attack methods? Asked another survivor. Our fleets could barely manage one strategy at a time. Because, Sarah replied, humans have always fought with whatever we could find. When you grow up on a world that tries to kill you with earthquakes, hurricanes, volcanoes, and ice ages, you learn to use every tool available. The council leader pulsed with what might have been understanding. Your chaotic nature, which we saw as a weakness, was actually an advantage. Not chaotic, Sarah corrected gently. Adaptive, there is a difference. Dr. Kim's voice came through Sarah's communication device. She was transmitting from Earth, where human scientists were still studying the captured Devourer technology. Council members, Dr. Kim said, we have discovered something important about the Devourers. They were not just random destroyers. They were created by an advanced civilization as a weapon of war. But their creators lost control of them millions of years ago. The chamber fell silent. Sarah felt a chill as she understood the implications. Are you saying, asked the Centauri representative, that somewhere in the galaxy is a species advanced enough to create the Devourers? Was, Dr. Kim corrected. We found records in the captured units. The creators destroyed themselves with their own weapon. The Devourers have been wandering the galaxy ever since, following their original programming to consume and grow. Sarah activated her own display. It showed a map of the galaxy with the Devourers' path marked in red. But now the map showed something else. Other swarms moving through distant regions of space. The group that attacked Earth was not the only one, Sarah announced. Our analysis suggests there are at least 12 other swarms scattered across the galaxy. Some are larger than the one we fought. The fear that had briefly left the chamber returned in full force. Aliens who had just begun to relax were now facing the possibility of facing enemies even more dangerous than the one that had nearly destroyed them. However, Sarah continued, we are prepared to share our methods with any world that requests our help. The Zephyrian delegate's scales flashed with hope. You would teach us your techniques? Sarah nodded. But there is something you need to understand. Our methods work because of who we are, not just because of what we know. You cannot simply copy our weapons and expect the same results. She gestured to the images of the battle playing above the chamber. We won because humans have been fighting for survival since our species began. Every day on Earth taught us to be stronger, more creative, and more stubborn than anything that threatened us. The council leader floated closer to Sarah. What are you proposing? Sarah took a deep breath. This was the moment she had been preparing for since the battle ended. I propose that the Galactic Council change how it thinks about advancement, she said. You have spent centuries trying to escape the challenges of your homeworlds. You built perfect societies and comfortable lives, but in doing so, You lost the skills you need to survive real threats. She looked around the chamber, meeting as many alien gazes as she could. Earth offers to become the training ground for a new kind of galactic defense force, not the automated systems and energy weapons you prefer, but warriors who remember how to fight when everything goes wrong. The chamber erupted in noise as delegates argued in dozens of languages. Some were excited by the possibility. Others were horrified at the idea of their people training on a death world. Finally, the council leader called for silence. You are asking us to send our people to a planet that you yourself admit is dangerous. Sarah smiled for the first time since entering the chamber. I am asking you to send your people to the planet that created the only species in the galaxy capable of defeating the Devourers. She rolled up her sleeve, revealing the small tattoo of Earth on her arm. Around the image of her homeworld were words in simple English that her translator made available to the entire chamber. Home is where the fight is. This is my home, Sarah said, pointing to the tattoo. It made me who I am. It made all humans who we are, and who we are is what saved you. The voting took 3 hours. Sarah sat quietly while alien delegates debated the fate of her world and her species. Some argued that humans were too dangerous to be trusted with training other species. Others insisted that Earth's methods were the galaxy's only hope against future threats. Finally, the results were announced. Earth was granted full membership in the Galactic Council. More than that, it was designated as the headquarters of the new Galactic Defense Corps, where representatives from across the galaxy would come to learn human methods of warfare and survival. But the real victory came in the final vote. By unanimous decision, Earth was reclassified from a failed world to a guardian world, a planet whose harsh nature had created protectors for the entire galaxy. As Sarah prepared to leave the chamber, the young crystalline student she had met months earlier approached her. Its teacher, the ancient ethereal, followed behind. Commander Chen, the young alien said in a voice like singing crystal, my teacher told me that your world created monsters, but you do not seem like a monster to me. Sarah knelt down to the student's level, just as she had months ago. What do I seem like to you? The young alien thought for a moment. You seem like someone who protects people. Sarah smiled and touched the crystal being gently. That is what monsters are sometimes, the things that stand between good people and the things that want to hurt them. As she stood to leave, the ancient ethereal teacher spoke in a voice like distant music. Perhaps we were wrong about what your world created, Commander Chen. Sarah paused at the chamber entrance and looked back at the teacher. No, she said quietly. You were exactly right. Earth did create monsters, but you never asked the most important question, which was, Sarah rolled down her sleeve, covering the tattoo of her homeworld. You never asked who we were monsters for. She walked out of the chamber, leaving behind a galaxy that was finally beginning to understand the difference between a curse and a blessing. Earth had been called the former, but it had always been the latter. Outside the building, Sarah looked up at the alien sky and activated her communication device to send a message home. Earth Command, this is Commander Chen. The galaxy is ready to learn what we have always known. Ing another H.